Hello, dear friends. Patrick here. Thursday, October 17th, 2024. It's a beautiful fall day. It's about 15 degrees Celsius, about 65 degrees Fahrenheit. Hope you're doing well wherever you are. Just want to give a quick summary. I did 5 videos on the topic of the Christian church in Canada in self-destruct mode, and I wanted to just give a quick summary on that. We looked at the major factions within the Christian church in Canada. Number one being the Catholic Church and the head of that church, what his position is, and where he's located in Rockcliffe Park in Ottawa, and the fact that the Catholic Church in Canada does not have any influence in the social discourse, and no influence in the political discourse. That person that's in charge of that, the Catholic Church in Canada, or is appointed as the ambassador for the Holy See in Canada, is unknown. Most people have never heard of him, and they probably never will ever hear of him. And that's just, whatever reason they chose to remain in the background is their concern. The second one, of course, being the United Church. And the United Church, many of the churches have embraced the woke propaganda and the woke ideology of the world. And for those that have not, they do not have any influence in political or social discourse either. They have an organization of which they are part, which covers a lot of churches in Canada. Apparently up to 85% of the adherents of the Christian religion in Canada are represented by what's called the Canadian Council of Churches, an organization that meets twice a year and is headed by a very woke, very passive individual who is more concerned about climate justice and coming to terms with his own whiteness than any type of pursuit of righteousness or justice in the political or social atmosphere or the public school system within Canada. Any of those categories, they are completely inert. And so where does that leave us? Once again, I don't want to pick on particular pastors, to remind the Christian viewer that the pastors and the priests are only doing their job. They are working for a paycheck. They are trained to be ineffectual. They are trained to be obedient to the state, and they have no interest in promoting what is good or wholesome on behalf of the population. They want to subdue the population, belittle the congregation, remind them constantly about guilt, treat them like kindergarten children, and so on and so forth, as we've already seen. And it is not really their fault, because they are only following what they've been taught to do. And they regurgitate the leaven of the scribes and the Pharisees, and that is their goal. The worst thing you could do would be to remind them of the Great Commission given to Peter 3 times to feed the sheep. That is the last thing a Christian pastor in Canada wants to do. They want to be fed by the sheep. In fact, there is no amount of feeding from the sheep that they will not accept. You could take, and they reinforce it with scripture, of course. Don't muzzle the ox while it's feeding, and the laborer is worthy of his hire, and wherever you go, just live for free wherever you go, and they'll pay you, and so on and so forth. And so they have this tight-knit club where they are all interested in scratching each other's back and feeding off the sheep. That is their goal. So you could be like Ananias and Sapphira and sell your house and take the money and give it to your pastor, and they would gladly accept it. But if you were ever to say, are you going to feed the sheep? They would say, how dare you? How dare you expect me to feed the sheep? That is totally antithetical to what they've been trained to do and what they've been taught by their pastor and their pastor's pastor, and so on and so forth. And that is the game that they're in, the grift of the Christian money-making machine, as you want to call it that. And that is why they cooperate with the state as well, because the state endorses that and encourages that and allows them to remain tax-free, because they know that they will go along with whatever policies they want to introduce to the population, and they will not get any pushback from any Christian group for policies that they introduce that are evil and perverted. So it's a cooperative effort between the state, the government, the federal government, the provincial governments, municipal governments, and the individual churches that go along with their wicked and perverted methods, if you want to call it that, or teachings. And so where does that leave us? There are slight glimmers of hope, and that's what I wanted to mention in this video. I saw a preacher from a church called V1 Church, or something like that. I forget, a V1 or W1 or U1 or something. I forget, but I'll try and see if I can splice in a video where he's talking about that Russia has banned the teaching of evolution in their schools. And I tried to find supporting news reports of that. I couldn't really find any, but what I did find when I was searching for that was that as of November of 2023, apparently Russia has banned anything to do with LGBTQ plus activism, or just LGBT activism, and because they say that it is a threat to their civil order, if you want to call it that. And so perhaps I can include some links to that. So that's interesting to see. I cannot say that in this video on this platform, I can't say anything about that, whether that's a positive or a negative thing, because of the censorship that exists, of course, in the West. And so we have to be very careful. We have to be wise as serpents, gentle as doves, of course. But you can see sometimes that there are glimmers of sensibility occurring in the world. And more closer to home, Lisa Robinson is a councilor in Pickering, and the Pickering Council has been taken over by the woke agenda, and they have been bought and bribed to promote what is wrong, what is corrupt, accepting bribes and promoting perverse ideology. And she is a voice standing up for righteousness, and they are taking away her salary, and they are trying to have her removed from the councilor position. And what you'll notice in a lot of these instances, there's another one that I'll put a link to, of a lady that's also suffering the similar persecution, that is on a Catholic school board and is suffering persecution because she wants to stand up for righteousness, and the rest of the school board wants to stand up for evil. This is a very common thing that you'll see. Most of the school boards have given themselves completely over to evil, so there are no voices. There's no dissenting voices. Essex County District School Board is a good example. They've given themselves completely over to the perversions of Satan, and they want to promote what is evil to destroy the innocence of children and the coming generation. That's very obvious that is what their goal is as a school board. But there are dissenting voices here and there, and what I would say to you is that this is where you can see glimmers of hope. This is where you can put your efforts into supporting those people, because what you'll notice is that the people that are promoting the Satanist agenda, they want to remain hidden. They don't like to be exposed at all. They want to operate in the darkness. This is why when teachers in the public school get their students each year, they'll close the door and say no parents allowed, and then they'll talk to the students and say, okay students, we have to keep this secret from your parents. We're going to introduce you to the satanic ideology, but it's between you and us. And this is a very common strategy that they use. So the way that you can combat that is to expose what it is that they're doing and bring it to the light. They hate that. They're like roaches that run away. As soon as their deeds and their words are exposed to the light, they scatter. And so the best way to support what is good and righteous and true, if you happen to be of the Christian faith in Canada or US for that matter, is to speak out when you see these type of injustice happening and expose them to the light. There's a semi-famous person that does that on a regular basis. They expose the alt-left libtards, if you want to call them that, and she exposes their TikTok videos. And if you know who I'm talking about, you probably know who I'm talking about. And they have been in a fierce battle of good against evil. And that particular person has had amazing success in getting rooting out evil and getting evil removed from a number of different locations, especially in the United States. And then there's parents that have taken it upon themselves to fight against evil. They've organized, when they found out that there was an indoctrination meeting planned to destroy the innocence of children, they've signed up and taken all the seats and so that the children don't have room for when the pervert comes in and presents the literature that he wants to pervert the children by reading them this particular piece of literature. The parents will fill up all the seats, and so there's no room for the children, and so they fail, and then they give up because they know they can't fool the parents. They know they can't indoctrinate the parents. So that is another glimmering sign of success. So wherever you can, keep your eyes open for these opportunities where you're able to speak up and stand up and give your voice of support to those that are fighting the battle of evil. We're told to pray for the Lord of the harvest, that he would send laborers into the harvest. It's not talking about adding more scribes and Pharisees to, perpetuate their social Christian clubs, which is what we have here in Canada. He's talking about people that are willing to stand up in the political realm, in the municipal realm, in the school board realm, in the realm of the libraries. These different places where it directly affects the community, not this sequestered, hidden social club that the pastors want to maintain their salaries. That's not what he's talking about. He's saying pray that the Lord would send out people that can affect your community, that can turn people towards righteousness, that can turn people toward God, that can turn people away from evil. And that's never going to happen in a Christian church in Canada because it has gone woke and it is powerless, as we've already discussed in the previous 5 videos. But this will be the last video that I'll do on this, and I would just encourage you as a Christian to keep an eye out because there are glimmering spots of hope. Another excellent preacher that I'll mention, and I'll either link to or put a clip in. I think I'll just put the links for this V1 guy, and again, he's a preacher that uses emotionalism and psychological intimidation. So as far as the preacher himself goes, I don't recommend, unless you're into that and you happen to be a Pentecostal or something, that's fine. But that type of preaching is not what you're looking for. Just always evaluate a preacher as if they were sitting at your dinner table saying the exact same thing. If he's yelling at you and intimidating you, you're not going to have somebody like that in your family. Run the other way, right? But this particular message that he's talking about, where he was talking about the activities in another country of how they were taking action to battle against evil, I thought was very encouraging. At least he was willing to mention it. And the other one I wanted to mention is called All Things Theology. It's a fellow from the United States, I believe. He never gives his name, so he probably wants to remain anonymous. But he has a channel called All Things Theology, and he exposes the grifters, the corrupt preachers that are simply trying to fleece the sheep from their resources and use it on their own personal avarice and greed and opulent lifestyle. Preaching with a Gucci shirt on and things like that. And so he's an excellent, mind you, he's picking the low-hanging fruit, but at least he's picking some fruit. So that's a good thing. He's exposing these grifters for who they are, and that's valuable to be aware of, because you can accidentally get sucked in and actually think that they're doing good. And meanwhile, you're absolutely wasting your time. This is one of the downfalls. It's not a downfall. It's just one of the characteristics of being a sheep, is that we are easily led. And so we have to be very, very careful that we're not being led by a wolf in sheep's clothing, which is the case that this guy exposes. All Things Theology. So I'll put a link to his YouTube channel. He's got lots of followers, and he does an excellent job of showing how ridiculous some of these preachers are. So those are a few lights in the darkness that have popped up that I've seen in the last week or two or so. And there'll be more lights that pop up. And as I said, even though we cannot put any trust or hope in our local Christian congregation, besides having a convenient place for a social gathering, as far as the pursuit of righteousness, the strength of standing up against evil that is enveloping our entire Western society, that is going to take something very, very different. It's going to take God intervening and finding a solution where the righteous are able to have a voice, and the righteous are able to stand up and say, no, this is wrong. We're not going to let you steal away our children. No, this is wrong. We're not going to let you introduce perverted ideology in the fabric of society, so that we're forced through compelled speech to be obedient to a satanic agenda. So that is where the battle is. And as we're told in Scripture, that our fight is not with flesh and blood, it is with these spiritual powers in the heavenly places. So the most important thing you can do is pray the Lord's Prayer, that God's kingdom would come on earth as it is in heaven. God's kingdom is full of righteousness and truth, and the world's kingdom is full of lies and deception, right? And wickedness and evil. So this is why we pray the Lord's Prayer. Dear God, your name is holy. May your kingdom come on the earth as it is in heaven. And leave the dormant, sleeping pastors and priests to their own devices. They'll have their pensions and their paychecks, and they'll be happy and they'll be busy doing that what they do. They visit the poor, and they organize bingo, and they do all these bake sales and things. They got to do all these logistics, so they're busy enough. They're not going to be standing up speaking out against political perversion or political bribery or lies or deception or any of that. They don't have time for that. And so it's up to us, individual believers, to stand up and to make sure that we would be on the side of righteousness wherever we see it. So if you have a city councilor that's willing to stand up for truth and righteousness, send them a note, encourage them, share their story, expose the evil people on the other side of the discourse that is standing up for evil. They will run. They will run in the other direction as soon as they know that they cannot do their evil deeds in secret, because they hate the light. They hate the light. They hate anything that exposes their deeds. So don't be afraid to speak up and stand up for truth and righteousness. So wherever you are, hope you're able to spend time with people you love. I pray that God blesses you in all things. As far as I know, this is the last video I'll do on this topic, and hopefully I can move on to something a little more positive and uplifting. I'll try and find something that would be an encouragement to you, and move away from this dark and sad situation that we happen to be living through at this time in history. Thanks a lot for watching. God bless you. Hope to talk to you again real soon. Take care of yourself. Be good.